Hey guys, so I did paint this piece a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been in my workshop and I've used it and it's had a lot of heavy use, and I haven't particularly taken care of the paintwork or anything because it's had workshop stuff in it, you know how it goes. So it's gotten a little bit shabby now. Plus I don't need it anymore since I've moved into my shop and it's just sitting collecting dust back in the storage room. So I decided I'm going to give it a completely new makeover. I am not going to strip this whole thing back. It is fine to paint over existing finishes, especially because I'm going to be going in with a reasonably textured look today. So I have just come back from Italy and there was all this beautiful grandiose architecture there. So that is kind of what I'm inspired by in this video today. I want to do something with a bit of a marble aged look to it. So I'm going to start with, excuse the pot, but I am going to start with a clay paint called Terra Clay Paints by Dixie Belle, and it's in Desert Tan, and it's this kind of, I'm going to call it like a bit of a greyish colour, beigey grey, and I'm going to start with this today, and I'm using the Best Dang brush also. I'm going to get plenty on my brush and I'm going to stipple. So by stippling, all that means is I'm dabbing. I'm going to do lots of dabbing, and this will create a bit of a faux stone-like texture. Originally this piece was sort of like a Bohemian Indian inspired style, but now we're going for something completely different. Hopefully you can see that has been a dramatic change. It's a lot lighter, and I am actually going in now with an even lighter colour if I can get it open. It's called Moonbeam. I thought that was going to splash everywhere then. And this is a real white, you know, a real cool white. I've got the Best Dang brush again, and I'm not going to put quite as much on my brush this time. Just a reasonable amount, and we're gonna just start doing a little bit more painting. I'm not completely covering the piece with the Moonbeam white. I am leaving some of the Desert Tan peeking through, and this is just to give the impression that the piece has aged and worn away, and some of the paint has started to peel away over time. This looks especially fantastic with all those amazing details and those little crevices. Next, I'm using a colour called Blue Agave, and this is a bluey greeny colour, like a blue colour with just perhaps a tint of mint green. And just like before, I am dry brushing this over the other colours, particularly all the texture that's been created by that first layer of stippling, and then also all of the details and crevices. I am also using a chip brush, and the chip brush is very wet, which is just diluting the paint a little bit. Clay paint reactivates with water until it is sealed, so with a water mister and a damp rag I am beginning to wet distress some of this piece, and this is just going to allow some of the other colours to peek through, and it's going to give it more of a rustic edge. I then add Moonshine Metallics Gold Digger by Dixie Belle, which is a gold metallic paint, and once again I am applying water and watering it down a little bit, and this is just going to help create a very distressed gold glazed effect. There was so much gold in Italy, everything had gold on, so if this is going to be an Italian inspired piece, then there definitely needs to be some gold on here, which I love anyway, so I'm not complaining. I then grab my damp rag again and I begin to pat and also rub, and again it's just to create that distressed aged effect with this gold glaze. Nothing wants to look too perfect on this piece. It needs to look like it has worn away, like there's loads and loads of layers of paint that have been stripped away. Again, it looks really fantastic in these detailed parts because it just really helps them pop. Next, I grab some sandpaper and I just begin to sand away some of those layers of paint. So in this next part of the video, I go into how I wax the piece, and I mentioned that I use Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax. That's a mistake. I'm not using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax. You shouldn't really use this with Terra Clay Paint. The reason being is because Terra Clay Paint is water-based and Terra is reactivated very easily with water until it's sealed. Therefore, it doesn't seal it, it just reactivates the paint. So I am using an oil-based wax. I can also recommend using Terra Tough and Terra Clear, which are made for Terra Clay Paint. You could also seal it with those and then use the Best Dang Wax over the top once it's sealed if you just want the decorative side of it. So yeah, I just wanted to clear that up so there's no confusion. I then begin to wax my piece using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in Clear. This is not only going to seal my piece, but it is also going to act as a foundation for some of the more decorative waxes I'm going to put on top. I often like to apply my wax with a chip brush, and that is what I'm doing here, and I'm making sure that I'm really getting into all of those crevices and those details. I'm not going to overload it too much because the paint and the wood can only soak so much wax in, and then it's just going to then sit on top. Also, because I'm going to be going in with some darker wax, it also helps that I don't go too crazy with the clear wax. It's easier to build up than it is to remove. I then begin to add my darker wax, and I'm focusing mostly on places that are going to be exposed. By that I mean is places where hands may touch, where it may be more exposed to weather and just, well, maybe not weather because it's not outside, but you know what I mean, like more exposed to dust in the house and things like that. So I'm using Dixie Belle's Best Dang Wax in Brown, which is a water-based wax, and I like to put the clear on first because then it acts as a foundation, and it means if I go in there with a little bit too much dark wax, and I can easily rub it off as I am doing here now. This is going to help make my piece look even more aged. It's going to look organically aged as well, because you don't want to be too perfect with this part of the process. You want it to look like it has naturally gone this way. Again, I'm using a chip brush and I'm just using a rag. Once I'm finished doing my waxing, then I will leave my wax to sit there for a short while, depending on how much time I have. It might be an hour or two, it might be 10 minutes, it might be overnight. But just remember that the furniture and the paint can only soak in so much wax. So let's say you leave it overnight and there's still some excess sitting on there, then be sure to go in and wipe that off, because otherwise it's just going to be sitting there for a long time. Lastly, it's time to use a little bit of gold gilding wax, and I just love this stuff. It's really strong and it's very shiny and shimmery and very eye-catching. So using my fingers, I'm just dabbing them into the gold gilding wax pot, and I am applying to some of the more obvious areas, so some of the areas that catch your eye. So these very gorgeous details here, the handles, and again, I'm not being perfect about it because I want it to look like it has worn away. It's always better to do this part of the process in stages, so it is better to work in sections and do your clear wax and your dark waxes first, and once you've done that, put on your gilding wax, and that's just to make sure that your gilding wax really pops and you're not going to blend it in too much with the darker waxes. And here is the finished look. What do you guys think? Do you think it looks like it might have once been very grand, sitting there in a old Florence mansion? Do you think that it looks like it has aged over time, and you know, all the gold and everything makes it look just that little bit more opulent? This piece, to be fair, was a very easy piece to make look good because it was beautiful on its own anyway, but still I am very happy with the way it turned out.